Let me educate the young generation on who MAJOTA PHAT KAMBULE is. He's the greatest to ever do it. Yes. I know you young guys or you young cats don't understand, don't know the impact that MAJOTA KAMBULE, aka PHAT has had in the South African entertainment slash music culture. Whether you're talking radio, television, presenting, DJing. I don't think all of y'all have seen him DJ. I think he stopped gigging about 15 years ago. He just decided to stop taking gigs. And I was like, at your prime, bro, like how do you stop DJing? And yeah, he just stopped like that. And that's PHAT for you. Imagine how much money he has lost or how much money he's decided not to take or not to make out of just DJing. Scratching, DJing, hip-hop DJ. PHAT on the decks. Vinyl. You can't touch it. That's just DJing, right? Radio. PHAT, but the PHAT, you saved my life. He used to have a radio show called PHAT Live and Dangerous. It was the hottest, it still remains the hottest YFM breakfast show, or let me say, the hottest breakfast show YFM has ever had. PHAT and the Data Man, PHAT and Leo Manne, PHAT and Cheese Man, Cindy Kambule. No, not Cindy Kambule, Cindy. Sorry, I forgot Cindy's surname. Cindy, there was the Data Man, there was Leo Manne, there was Nick, who went on to become my business partner, Nick Regisford. Those days he was working with PHAT. They made magic on radio. Arguably the best breakfast show this country has ever had, or let me say YFM has ever had. But when you compare it with other radio stations, obviously different radio stations focus on different demographics. So I cannot necessarily say the whole country. It's my own personal opinion because it appealed to me at the time. And then he had a PHAT Live and Dangerous TV show. PHAT goes down as one of the greats in this country. TV presenting, creativity, skits, his wittiness, he was always witty on air, his presentation style, his humor, his ability to have that chemistry with his co-hosts, whether it be TV, whether it be radio, the type of gigs that they used to do back in the days with DJ Fresh. I mean, I remember they did the one gig in Rosebank where there were only 2 guys at the gig. And guys were not allowed up until 12 o'clock midnight. I think they opened at 7 or 8 o'clock. It was just ladies. And then guys were only allowed at midnight. The only guys that were in that gig was DJ Fresh and PHAT stripping on stage. And then afterwards, getting onto the decks, DJing. Packed to capacity. It was back in the days of Mr. Tish Matez. Shout outs to Mr. Tish Matez, who's probably now making money somewhere. But I know he's a legend. I have to pay homage to Tish Matez. Young people don't know that Tish Matez once ran things in South Africa. Night culture, music, DJing, being on air, radio. He's a radio legend. And sadly, at some point, he ended up getting deported back to Zimbabwe. But I want him to know that the kids that he's raised have become Abo DJ Swoo. That I always want to give him his props and pay homage to him. I remember he had a nightclub in Rosebank. I think that's where DJ Fresh and PHAT had their ladies-only event. And they advertised it live on air at YFM. And just all the gigs that PHAT used to throw, man. About my electric workshop with the YFM. And I think the person who used to organize those gigs back at the time is Mr. Lebukunguluza, the entrepreneur. At the time, he was still starting out. He was a young businessman, throwing big gigs, man, partnering. Abo Y Mama Y Bash. I don't know if you guys remember those. But my electric workshop back downtown in Newtown, Johannesburg, back in the day, before the SAB Centenary Center in Newtown, downtown. Ah, those days were crazy, guys. You guys don't understand. You guys don't know. You guys don't know the history of PHAT, man. He's a humble guy. He's a family man now. He's married. He's a father. I just wanted to do this video to pay tribute to Joe KAMBULE, MAJOTA KAMBULE, aka Fat Joe. He's the greatest to ever do it in the entertainment industry in South Africa. He is your favorite DJ's favorite DJ. He's your favorite radio DJ's favorite radio DJ. He's your favorite South African entertainer's favorite South Africa's entertainer. He's the greatest to ever touch the mic. He's the greatest to ever touch the turntables, to ever be on camera, to ever present any television show, radio show in South Africa. And I always say all the greats, people like the late great Chili M, Vugani Masinga, may his soul rest in peace, and Fat Joe and MacG. MacG's killing it now. I always say people like us, we are our own worst enemies because we are so good at what we do, but sometimes because we're creatives, we end up getting in our own way and we get ourselves fired. But there has never been a DJ in South Africa who has been fired many a times than Fat Joe. Why? Because he just shoots from the hip. He's not afraid to speak his mind. He's not afraid to set trends. He's not afraid to pioneer things. A lot of the things that are actually happening right now in the entertainment industry, he started that like 20 years ago. Yes, 20 years ago. He's hosted on Metro, Afternoon Drive, Fat Joe with the killing, the afternoon show. He's hosted the Wife and Breakfast show. He's hosted on Metro. He's hosted on Kai FM, the Breakfast show. He's hosted on, I think, East Coast Radio. He's been everywhere and he's been fired everywhere he's been at. But he's also kicked butt everywhere he's been at. And he's set the pace. He's set trends. He's made history. He's inspired generations. He's made a name for him. He's an institution in South African entertainment. And I just wanted to do this video to pay homage to Joe MAJOTA KAMBULE, aka Fat Joe. If you are over 35 years old and you've been living in South Africa all along, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Especially those who've been living in Gauteng over the past, say, 15 to 20 years. You know exactly what I'm talking about. And that is Fat Joe. And I thought I must just do this video to pay tribute to my big homie, to my grootman, to my inspirator, to somebody I've always looked up to and I've always wanted to be like him. A lot of us that you see us right now and you're calling us OGs or you're calling us great and you're calling us all sorts of beautiful, positive names. We appreciate it. But a lot of us all wanted to be like Fat Joe at some point. And how he's been able to be consistent over the years, and every show that he gets, he nails it. Every TV show he gets, he nails it. Every radio show he gets, he nails it. And he's just born for this. You know, there's other people who are just born for something. There's people who are born for soccer. There's people who are born for boxing. There's people who are born for basketball. There's people who are born for presenting, for entertaining, for music, for dancing. There's just certain people who are a different breed. They were born for that. And it's not people who are taught to become that great. Yes, they've probably had mentors over the years. They probably were inspired by other people as well. But there's just certain people who are a certain type of breed. And he's one of those. He's a different breed. And I just wanted to do this video and tell you guys, all you young guys out there, that Fat Joe, when you see him or when you see the name Fat Joe, show that name some respect, because your father or your uncle or your bigger sister or your bigger brother have got respect for the man. Your big sisters or your mother at some point had a crush on Fat Joe. Your big brother or your father or your uncle, at some point, he was inspired by Fat Joe or he wanted to be like Fat Joe. And yeah, man, just to see him age like fine wine and to be as dope as he's always been, and just to be that grootman who's always been consistent, who's now a family man. I just heard in the interview with Thembekile Mkhototo where he says he's got some big things under his sleeves. I just can't wait to see what he's going to come up with. Before there was internet radio, Fat Joe at some point was working with MTN. I think they were supposed to have come up with some online radio station. That's already like 15 years ago. I don't know what happened to that idea. I think MTN slept on Fat Joe. They slept on the idea because that station would be big, would be far by now. Before there was Trans Africa Radio, before there was Massive Metro, before there was Cliff Central, before there was Touch HD, before there was the podcasting culture, Fat Joe pioneered all of that with MTN. But for some reason, they just never went to launch. I can imagine how big that platform would have been by now. Before there was Fired FM, there was Fat Joe Radio and MTN, and I can imagine what it could have, or what it would have become if they went and launched and pioneered that space, because he was the first guy with that idea. And I wanted to give him his props because he deserves them. He's the greatest to ever do it in South African entertainment. Fat Joe, MAJOTA, KAMBULE, I respect you, Grootman. I love you, Grootman. I am still inspired by you. Here are your flowers. Smell them because you deserve it. You're the greatest to ever do it. Danko!